Hello folks and welcome to Tippcast with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by Shane Brophy, Head of Sport of the Nina Guardian. Shane, we just have to hold our hands up at this stage. Tipperary clubs are not getting it done.
You must be getting awful shooing from all your Clare fans at the moment. Like they're loving it.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, like you look at it, the teams we've left now at this stage, we're looking at Clonmel Commercials, who hopefully go on a right run. We're looking at Drum and Inch in the Munster camogie final, and then the intermediate camogie final, Shannon Rovers. I think after that, we're done.
We're done, yeah. I was even thinking for next week, God, will we wrap up Tippcast next week? I was like, it's Jesus, like it's just so disappointing, like, because I'd even bring it back to something myself, like even when we're with Laura, there is a sort of a growing pressure within Tip and anybody that's going to represent Tip that our record is so poor at the moment that it's we have, like, you're not going in just to have a goal. Like, you really have to go in and win. Like, and we were going in to win, but like it's not looking good. Like, and I suppose we have to fairly well probably acknowledge at this stage that while we might be proud of our county championship and the competitive nature of all our competitions, is this quality that high? On the basis of the last few years, it's not.
Are we,
especially against the Clare and the Limerick teams? I think it's fair to say the Clare and the Limerick championships do look a step above Tip at the moment. So, like, in terms of the top end.
So, do you feel there is a pressure on? Do you feel like, of the Tipperary teams that you've seen, have they gotten the best out of themselves when they've gone forward into these championships?
I think they're putting their best foot forward, but like, I suppose if we look from a senior hurling point of view, if Kiladangan and say go back to 2021, Lockmore, like I give Kilawan a pass last year. They had to go play Ballygunner 7 days after a county final replay with a load of lads injured. They hadn't a chance. But this year and a couple of years ago, Lockmore came in probably with full strength teams. If both Kiladangan and Lockmore had finished the matches with 15 men, they'd likely have won both of those games. Would you not think?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, that's where, and people say, look, rightly or wrongly, what did the Kiladangan and Lockmore players researchers went off? People can argue that, but there's definitely a case that we're very, very competitive, but we're not. I don't think we're being. What would you say? I don't think we're aware that hurling is different outside the county. I definitely think refereeing approaches are different outside the county. I definitely think in Tipperary, the Sean Hayes incident last weekend, there's no way that would have been a red card in Tip.
That wouldn't have been a red card anywhere.
I can see why it was given a red card. I can see why. I wouldn't have given it. I think it was one of those grey area ones where I don't think it was intent. It was a frustrating swipe, if you know what I mean. Like one of those. But I suppose I'm going to put this argument to you, Shane. You were familiar with the Dublin scene. The Dublin referees probably know all the players that they're refereeing. They know, is this guy a good guy, is there a bad guy? They sort of know the scene. And sort of referees in your own county sort of let you, they might give you the benefit of the doubt, or I'm not going to send the lad off here unless it's really bad. But if you were going into Munster and you get caught doing something, you have, like, that referee knows nothing about you. He will definitely go to the letter of the law. And that's it.
Do you know, I don't know if I agree with that because like in Dublin, like there seems to be a bit of a turnover of refs here and there. There's a few, like there's 2 or 3 county lads, right, that you see regularly. I won't name any of them.
But they wouldn't. There's a fair, like, they would know the clubs. They probably know. They'd probably get to play ref all those clubs fairly regularly, and they sort of know this player and that player, and is this guy a bit of form for dirty play, or is this, that sort of thing.
Well, look.
Whereas you're in Munster, you have no preconceived. You're going in, but there's a star player on the team you're refereeing, maybe that is an inter-county lad, like John Conlon was last weekend for Clonmel, for example. I'm not saying John Conlon did nothing wrong. I'm just making an example that Kieran O'Regan would have known John Conlon and probably the two Galvins. He wouldn't have known a lot of the Kiladangan lads.
Yeah, but it's not like he's never watched hurling before.
Yeah,
it's not like
I know.
Wouldn't have seen the Kiladangan against Thurles games,
But he wouldn't. But he's not on the ground in the county, maybe living amongst them, reading the papers, talking to lads about players. You know what I mean? That's the point I'm making.
Yeah, again, okay, right. So who gave the red cards when Lockmore lost to Ballygunner? Johnny Murphy.
He did, yeah.
And who gave the red card then to decide that Sean Hayes was getting sent off the other day? Sorry, who's the linesman who decided he was going to get sent off the other day?
Johnny Murphy was. Johnny Murphy's the one who spotted the Dan O'Mara incident.
Okay, well, if he was right on that, I was told that.
Johnny Murphy spotted the Dan O'Mara incident because I was watching him and I saw when Kieran O'Regan went over to Johnny Murphy, I saw that Johnny Murphy making that sort of.
Did he not also call the one on the far? So were you at the high press box or were you at the far?
No, I was at the Orion side.
Okay, so who was the linesman then at your side?
Whoever the other, I'm not sure his name, but I know it wasn't. Johnny Murphy was on the Canaan stand side in the second half. So
okay, I'll apologize to Johnny Murphy for that because I had it mixed up then.
Yeah.
But we know at the red cards that time against Ballygunner, one of the most cynical performances we've ever seen.
Yeah.
That there was an element of a joke to that as well, and there was an element of simulation. We're not here going to debate whether Dan O'Mara deserves to get sent off. I'm sure he's taking his medicine at this stage. But to me, the other one, there's a player being, battling for the ball, wheeled around in the ruck. The ball is there. You don't. It's not as if you weigh it up. Is there a lad's leg in the way? You have it flicked before you've even thought about it. Yeah. It wasn't dangerous. Yes, it was a free. Yes, it was a foul. Yes, maybe you can give a yellow card. I wouldn't even give a yellow card for that, and that's just me. Some people think that refereeing you have to be shown to give cards or whatever. I'd just be saying flick, foul, on we go, hurl away. It was a shock to most people on the ground that he got sent off. And
I think there's no doubt about it. There was a bit of a sound. There's no doubt he connected with him. It was more of a swipe. It was I've seen those given, and you rarely see a red card. You might see a yellow given for him, but you rarely see a red. And I actually thought the interesting thing for me in that whole incident was that the incident happened, but the referee didn't signal a free. He didn't even signal an advantage. The play went on for about 3 seconds, and I was watching the linesman on that side. He's talking. And then about 3 seconds, Kieran O'Regan looked back, stopped the play. He didn't call back a free. He stopped the play and then gave a free. It was like he gave the free on the advice of the linesman, and that's technically not allowed. A linesman cannot award a free in GAA.
Well,
it's not like rugby and soccer where the referee linesman in rugby and soccer can flag foul play and call a free and say, ref, you have to give a free there. A linesman cannot do that. He can. The play must go on before a linesman's can be. You can go talk to a linesman.
There's a million of those flicks in every training session.
Absolutely,
Put it this way, right? Do you remember from the Rugby World Cup final or semi-final? I mentioned this on our game on Monday, and I know you watch probably a bit more rugby than I do. When was it Wayne Barnes or one of them? There was a head collision in either a semi-final or a final. Again, I can't remember the teams, but after the review, the referee turned around to the captain on whichever side had been offended and said, "Look, not every head collision is a red card. Not every strike. To strike a player is a red card. But look, we're not playing."
I fully agree with you. I've seen a couple of people say Owen Sharkey and Billy Seymour should have been sent off on Sunday as well for there's no doubt their hurley hit the head of the Clonlara, but they were making a play for the ball that was in the air at the time. They didn't go to connect it deliberately to connect with the head. The ball was there they went in to try and flick it at that height. We've got to be very, very careful now. People looking for frees for everything. If you want to go down that road, we'll have 100 frees a match and we'll have no actually open play in a game of hurling whatsoever. So just be careful what you're wishing for.
It's supposed to be a physical game. And that doesn't mean that I'm saying, right.
And then we're saying it, dirty play deserves to be called out and dealt with. And there's no, even Kiladangan, every Kiladangan person I've spoken to, have no defense of Dannemara. And even one of their players I spoke to after the game, like he saw, like he couldn't defend him. Like, so look, it was but
it's a real no-no in hurling. There's actually a player in Dublin that I often had to man mark, and because I knew he had it in him and he went to do it to me once, I knew I had to man mark him in another championship game, then whenever. I actually considered wearing a cup, believe it or not, but ultimately I didn't, because it can be quite, if you're not used to it, it can be quite uncomfortable to try and wear one of those. But look, I'm hoping he has no form for it.
No, he doesn't. But that's not to say.
But you got it.
He doesn't. But that's not to say sometimes a red mist can fall. Does anybody think that we all accept John McGrath is not a dirty player? But like what he did, maybe the All-Ireland semi-19, swinging out, whether he can, like, that's sometimes that even the most calmest of players can do. Just see the white, just the red mist comes over, and that split second, and it's over. It's all. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, sure. Like, no one's saying that Richie Hogan's a violent player just because he got red card at that time.
No,
I can't think of him getting red carded otherwise.
Yeah.
But okay, right. Just in terms of the game, then overall, you were there. Like, we didn't see the best of Kiladangan. Now, to be fair, Clonlara were brilliant, and they created far more chances. And I feel that they could have probably won the game by more for a finish. They nearly lost it, and it was unbelievable stuff from Kiladangan, who it seemed they only actually started passing the ball to each other when they were down to 13 men. But what was your read on the game? And it finished up 23 points to 119.
Yeah, look, I suppose at half time, you would have said for Kiladangan were a point down. They're in a great position because they had been outplayed for, I suppose, the first 15 minutes now. Like, Clonlara were well on top. And like, I don't think people appreciate the strength of the breeze down there last Sunday was significant enough. Like, there was times when Barry Hogan tried, if he wasn't going for the big puck out and he was trying, there was one time, I think one of John Conlon's points, a gust came up and Barry Hogan's drilled puck out never got to the 45-yard line. Like, so like there was a breeze there. And in fairness, I did think it was a bit strange that Kiladangan in the first 50 minutes still played 3 men in their full forward line. Like, you would have thought against the breeze, at least bring one out to the half forward line, make crowd, and maybe if you're going long, at least you have an extra body around there. And maybe just to slow the whole thing down, or maybe crowd it out a bit. But look, like, Clonlara got off to a great start. Like, you have Ian Galvin, or Barry Hogan pull off a great save from Ian Galvin. Colin O'Mara, who had a massive first 20 minutes. Like, he was really the guy who drove the thing on early on. And I thought, like, he gave Joe Gallagher. Joe Gallagher really couldn't get a handle on him in the first 20 minutes. Like, so, but like,
were they poor matchups picked by Kiladangan? Like, before the game, and look, I think John Conlon would give most people the run around anyway. But was it not more suitable to have Joe Gallagher on John Conlon because of the size profile, and maybe Alan Flynn on Colm O'Mara? We flagged it, like.
Yeah, but Conlon started in midfield, so I must go back and look at the video to see did Conlon actually go back in centre forward after the start. So I'm not sure he did.
Well, he did. He definitely drifted.
He did. No, he was given a free role, like, more or less, like, and it seemed to me that Kiladangan had identified Willie Connors to go on Colin Galvin. So, like, that's why generally Willie plays on the right-hand side of the half-back line, whereas then this game, Joe Gallagher played on the right-hand side of the half-back line. So, look, I suppose early on, it definitely looked like a mismatch, or a matchup that went wrong, because Colin O'Mara had a great start. But I suppose Kiladangan worked against him, got the goal. Like, I definitely think another thing, like, the injury to Brian Mallochny definitely robbed Kiladangan of, like, Brian Mallochny has started very well. He won the first 2 balls that came into him. One led to a point, and then he hit a point himself, and then the hamstring went and he had to go off. Like, and that, like, you're robbing Kiladangan of, like, when he's on, like, he hasn't had a good championship by his own high standards. But when he's on it, and if he gets off to a good start in matches, his confidence is up. And I thought, like, he could have been good for another 2 or 3 points at the game if he was still there. But like, they lost him. Owen Sharkey came on and he was taken off in the second half, just never influenced the game at all. Like, so, look, they got to half time in a good position, got the first 2 points of the second half, got level, and of course, then the red. This was just as we're under position to probably drive on maybe and get in front, the red cards the first red card came, and I suppose that changed everything after that.
And like, we can't underestimate how well Clonlara started. They had 2 goal chances. They had 7 point scoring opportunities also. Kiladangan were riding the crest of a wave. Like, are we putting that down simply to they're up against a strong breeze? I mean, what was it that?
I'm not saying there was a factor. There was no doubt it was a factor. Like, because
did the notion of Munster get to them? You know, like,
no, I don't think. I just think there's I think there's a notion out there that, like, why do we have to assume that a Tip club should be better than a Clare club? Why? Like, I don't get that. Like, they're the champions of Clare. Like, so, like, home advantage makes no difference either. Like, look, they just didn't get off to a good start. Like, if those 2 teams play again next Sunday, Kiladangan might get off to a better start. It was just maybe Clonlara just were to the pitch of the game early in the match. That's probably all it was. I wouldn't read too much into why they didn't get to they just weren't at the pitch of the game that they needed to be. And that's what I think, that's another ingredient maybe of why Tip clubs are maybe struggling a small bit outside the province. Either they're thinking that you can play the same way in Tip, but you can't. You have to bring more. You have to find another element in Munster, because other teams are bringing another element. They're fighting. I don't know how they're doing it.
But, like, what are the other teams bringing? Like,
they seem to be bringing a greater energy. Clonlara brought a greater energy, or Carafin brought a greater energy against us. Like, we thought we were prepared well.
But, like, you look at the Tip County final versus the Clare County final. They were both on TV or whatever. Yeah. It was night and day in terms of, like, the physicality in the Tipperary County final. Like, I think it has to be nerves, or it has to be going out there. And, you know, like, why did it take 2 red cards before they actually started passing the ball around to each other? Because that's what they were brilliant at.
Because of the 2 red cards, they had no choice to pass it around, because they couldn't drive the ball in.
But why did it take that? You know, why? Like, there's a couple of times against, especially Thurles in the 2 finals, when they started stick passing around the back, like that brilliant Alan Flynn point back to front at the end. Where did that go?
I suppose it's probably the game plan is to go to try and get the ball into the inside forwards as quick as you can. That's probably plan A. That's like we know Kiladangan are very good at plan B. Maybe I don't know. Maybe there's been more preparation done by opposition teams and Tip than Tip teams and opposition teams. That could be some of it too.
Yeah, look, we got to give them huge credit. After the two red cards, Kiladangan still turned it around.
I thought they're hurling for the 11 minutes when they went from 3 points down to 2 up was incredible. Like the Alan Flynn point, that move, and I was saying in my piece this week, I was saying to myself, the anti-hand pass brigade, there's too many hand passes. I thought that was a gorgeous team score. And there was probably more hand passes and stick passes in that move, because they had no choice. They couldn't just bury the ball inside, because Clonlara, I suppose, to their own weakness, played their 2 spare men in the full back line.
Which means you actually have 4 of your 15 men back in one small area back there.
Yeah, where they actually needed to play one of them up the field to at least crowd that middle third and at least give you, somebody maybe to cut off a pass or something like her. Or like that was, they definitely, I suppose if there's a weakness for Clonlara, they definitely played their part in and not stopping the Kiladangan turnaround, like, so, because by doing what they did, like, they more or less said, okay, we'll stop a goal, but they forgot to realise that Kiladangan are more than adept at picking off long range scores and maybe working the ball around the middle. And like, I thought it was that risk and the quality of pass that got Kiladangan into the winning position, but it was also that risk and reward style that cost them the game, with when Alan Flynn tried to make that cross-field pass to Willie Connors. Like, it was the wrong... He meant well, but it was the wrong play at that time, if you know what I mean. But
I don't agree. I think he did the right thing. That's what got, like, that's why they went 5 points in a row.
No, that's what I'm saying.
It's just a mishit pass.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is that it had there was the ramifications of that decision were led to the flag. Was that? Yeah, I agree. I accept that he meant it was the right, but you know what I'm saying. It what would you say? It was in keeping with what Kiladangan had been doing for the previous 15 minutes, but it just didn't work out on that at that time. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you on that.
Yeah, so he's just on misfortunate, really.
Yeah.
Like for long spells, Kiladangan's big players didn't step up. I mean,
Alan Flynn had his quietest game up until Alan. He was very, very quiet in the match, until maybe that last 10 or 15 minutes when he really stepped forward and made runs from deep. Willie Connors was pretty quiet. Joe Gallagher, the fairness to Clonlara, they definitely stifled the ability of that Kiladangan half back line to dictate the match. You had no qualms there. Billy, you have to say, Billy Seymour had a massive game. Declan McGrath, Ty Gallagher, I thought, had big games. Where's the match program there to see?
Sean Hayes and Paul Flynn didn't really give the performances that we were looking for.
That's it. Yeah, it was to win games like that, you need more than 3 or 4 players having their dominating, and you had more on the Clonlara side. John Conlon was immense. Colin O'Mara was very good. Michael Clancy in the start of that free role as well. They were excellent, I suppose. But then they had Ian Galvin, who was pretty quiet all through as well. But then reading the manager, they just didn't feed him the ball. But then you could put that down to Kiladangan too. They made sure that probably the most dangerous.
You have to get in the game.
Clonlara team that took him out of the match, really. So.
Well, look, I think it's probably, if you're kind of standing in full forward and the ball never comes in and you're told to stay patient to the goals, fair enough. But if you're playing out in the middle 8 or middle 12, as it probably is these days, you got to get yourself into the game. It's not about putting the ball into your hand. You got to get in there. Darren Moore, I feel very sorry for him. He had that chance. But
I was right behind it. I'd say there was very little in it. He was right to take it on, because if that goes over, it's a 2-point lead, and Clonlara are forced to go for a goal. Just the way the story was of the game, they probably would have got it when you see how the winning score came from Jeremy Stritch, and 30 seconds previously, the PA announcer said that he was coming off. I was sitting beside a couple of journalists, and we're saying, have Clonlara 16 men on the field? Is this another? Has the guy who should have been has this guy not come off? He's got the score. Are we going to get more drama here? But I suppose we realised after that, while the sub was announced, they never actually made the sub, and he was it was nearly just the way it finished, and he gave the win. It's just that maybe it was destiny for Clonlara to win that game, and just as it's just seen the delight in their faces. There's no doubt about it. That representing your county and going on in Munster means a lot. I do think maybe I heard that question a good few times in Tip, that Munster is a bonus, and I think we've got to get away from that stuff in Tip. When you're representing Tip, you can't treat it as a bonus. You've got to bring the same level of intensity and hunger into that game as you did for the county final that got you there.
Yeah, and maybe in the past when we had 500 teams senior, and then probably a team is then going into the intermediate having played in a competition that puts them in at a disadvantage, I suppose, compared to the other. Maybe that added to it over the years, where teams going in at that level, they know they're on a hiding to nothing. But it has to change, because
I hope we just get it. We, speaking from Lord, we didn't see Munster as a bonus. We knew this is our next game. We're representing Tipperary. We've got to go out there and play to our do to the best. And look, we prepared as we did for all other games. We just didn't perform on the day, and that was it. And Corofin won it, and now Corofin are in a Munster final. They beat the Limerick champions last weekend.
Yeah, so David Hogan, are Tip clubs actually struggling? Bursley's exploits speak for themselves, and Lockmore pushed Ballygunner to the pin of their collar with 13. Killarwan as a Tip representative was an outlier.
Yeah, you can have one of those years where maybe a Killarwan can come through. Sort of, they came from the pack really and won probably a county against the odds, and then it's hard, and then you're going up against Ballygunner, and in Walsh Park, you probably have very slim chance. Then you have Boris Lee. I actually think, I don't know what you think. I actually think Boris. There's another thing of why I think Tip hurling teams strictly so. I'm not sure winter hurling suits a lot of Tipperary teams, but I would say Boris Lee were better set to cope with winter hurling because they had a lot of big men that could cope in soft conditions, And I'm not saying there were good hurlers, but you had the two Kennys, you had Jerry Kelly, a lot of good physical lads that could, Brendan Maher, a lot of good physical lads, Kieran Cohen, who could hold their own physically in winter hurling.
Yeah, it's a fair point, and also they kind of played to it. They looked to make it a tight physical game. Yeah. And anyone who's going to beat Ballygunner, they won't beat them in a shootout anyway. That's for sure.
Yeah,
but
I do think we're proud in Tip of the way we play our club championships. They're lovely. A lot of them are very open, nice games. I'm not saying they're soft hurling or by any means, but they're not overly tactical, I would say, or not. We saw when the good teams like Kiladangan and Thurles, they really brought a physical edge to the county final. When the good teams go at each other, we can probably play the perfect game. But when you go to Munster, you have to, and the pitch conditions get really soft. You do need a couple of guys that are really know how to mind themselves and maybe make a hit when needs be, or stop an opponent getting forward.
Yeah, look, it was definitely a disappointing performance, and they could well have won it if they had to stay at 14 men.
I have no doubt they would have won it at 15 men. I just think they were just beginning to get on top in that first round. And I suppose that first red card changed everything, and they had fallen 3 behind. It was as if when they got to the second red card, they sort of said, okay, we really have to. And we've seen it so many times, the team with down a man find another level of energy from somewhere, and they come from behind. And in fairness to Kiladangan, they did, but I suppose when they saw the board go up and there's 5 minutes injury time, you just know that God, there's still time for Clonlara here, and in fairness to them, they got the 3 scores to win the game.
Yeah, they were brilliant. Kept their heads when they seemed to be panicking. Just a final point on it then. From the 50th minute on, right, to the 67th, I suppose, when it was blowing up, a third, and this is the period where Kiladangan were down 2 men. They created 11 of their 33 chances during the period where they were down to 13 men, which just shows that it took those 2 cards from to fully start, hurling out in the field and using the ball. And at times we've seen them do it through the year, and they are unreal when they do it. But I just think they didn't.
Yeah, it's actually something they'll probably maybe reflect over the winter months and think, okay, will we, instead of maybe trying to play plan A as the traditional style, maybe having 3 men in the full forward line, will we go a different way next year and maybe be more practical in our use of the ball and maybe play 2 inside and create that extra body around the middle, and maybe sacrifice maybe that goal threat or something like that. I'm sure it's something they'll sit back and reflect on and to see how good they were in that period when they were 2 men short, and it still were so composed in the ball.
Right, so that was a good passionate discussion of that. We probably won't get as worked up about Napirshick against Ballygunner.
No.
Finished up 16 points to 1-9 to Ballygunner. Hard to see Clonlara beating them, but given how they perform for long spells in Thurles, and the final will be in Thurles again, have you seen enough to suggest that they can put it up to Ballygunner?
I think they'll give it a right good go, and I just think, look, we'd all love Kiladangan to be in the final, but when you break it down afterwards, Sean Hayes, Dan O'Mara suspended, Brian Malachney and Declan McGrath potentially injured, they went off with hamstrings. Kiladangan, if they had snuck through, could be on the end of a bad. You can't go into a Munster final found 4 of your starters. So maybe coming up a bit short wasn't a bad thing. But I'm not saying, look, you still want to go play in a Munster final, but if you want to go play in a Munster club final at your strongest, and they weren't going to be at their strongest, whereas Clonlara, They have momentum. They lost nobody to injury in the game. They have nothing to lose. But, geez, like this Ballygunner team looks like a machine. They're just absolutely ruthless. I actually do think, I don't know whether you agree with me, I think they break hurling down more than Limerick do in terms of I think they do they dissect the game more than actually Limerick do. Well, they break down every element, and they'll play a certain game plan for whoever they play. Like they're so comfortable playing anyway.
Okay, but like if you look at the last 10 years, and they've won 10 in a row in Waterford, every year, how much time do they spend collectively more than the majority of clubs they play against? So every year, they're honing their game plan for 2, if not 3 months more than everybody else they come up with. The Ballyhale, for example, serial winners of their county championships would be the exception. But there's different winners.
This was the same back through the year. Borough would have been the very same when they were dominating there, because they were hurling collectively, a lot of them with Offaly and then Kiladangan. Like more training sessions you get, and if you're going deep into the All-Ireland every year, you know what's needed, and you're getting better and better and better. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, like we felt that with on the runs with Coola. So there was like a 2-year spread there where, of course, lads went back to the county, but the majority, huge parts of the year, these lads were with Coola only. Even like Con O'Callaghan, who'd normally be with the footballers for 9 months of the year, he's with the hurlers for the guts of 6 months, maybe even probably 7 or 8 months. Yeah. It just makes a huge difference. So you'd have to compliment Ballygunner and how they're making use of that. Like just that long period for a couple of months after they win their county championship before they enter Munster. And they do the rounds like, we would have come up with them against them with Coola several times in challenge matches around that time of the year. And they play everybody and they use all their panel because they're giving some of the county lads a bit more of a rest. But like that game kind of suggests the importance of Pádraig Mahoney. Like he was sensational, I would have said.
I didn't get to see an awful lot of it, to be quite honest. I was still en route back from Thurles, so but from the bits I saw, like I just think they what would you say? They're a team that actually, I do think they look at their opposition and they break them down and say, well, who's their threat? How do we use Pádraig Mahoney? Do we concentrate on the short ball today, or do we concentrate on the long diagonal ball or into the corner? I think they would have looked at the Piersig a lot and say, okay, that's the point I was making a few minutes ago. I do think they dissect every element of an opponent before they take them on and say, okay, this is how we're going to play them. And Pádraig Mahoney is definitely central to it.
And he probably figures it out on the fly as well. Yeah. He just seemed like he's such a smart, experienced player at this stage. He knows where the space is. He knows where he should position himself to exploit whatever the opposition is doing. But I give the Piersig so much credit, particularly in the way they frustrated the Ballygunner puck out, because Ballygunner are normally so brilliant with the puck outs, and they'd mixed it up the previous day against Sarsfields by when they had the wind driving it all the way to the far D and winning the breaks. But in this game here, they were offering up the short puck out to Ballygunner, and then they were showing them little traps, and they were working them down the traps, and they were unlucky not to get that goal early on when there was an interception. Who was it? One of the players, I can't remember exactly who it was, intercepted a defender for Ballygunner, and they were in. And like they did that a few times. And again, like I kind of mentioned, Kiladangan, some of their key men didn't really take over the game. There was one or two of the county players that you'd normally expect, or former county players with na Piersig, who probably didn't quite frank the usual form. But
no, still, and I there could be some reason to that. Some of them were gone on the Limerick team holiday for a couple of weeks previously. The Hot Stars were on Friday night. There wasn't the ideal preparation for some of their inter-county men, and I do think while na Piersig won Limerick, it's fair to say that this is not the na Piersig team that were there 5 or 6 years ago. Like, you think on the day against Patrick Swell, they got their matchups right. They played better than Patrick Swell. Who played the game the next week, I think Patrick Swell could have won the game. I think Patrick Swell underperformed on that day. So, but I do think maybe na Piersig, did they veer away too much from what they did well that day against Patrick Well? Like, playing Ronan Lynch full forward, why would you take one of your best creators why would you take him around away from that middle third?
Because they probably felt that he doesn't have the physicality around the middle third, and like he might be physically a big player, but he's not he's not an aggressive player. He doesn't get like a huge amount of tackles in. So I can kind of understand it. But I would say that Will O'Donoghue was excellent, obviously playing as the holding centre back. But did you lose something by not kind of deciding should we play him further up the field? Now the counterpoint, of course, is that Patrick Fitzgerald ended up getting substituted with 15 minutes to go, which is some compliment of how your team is set up if an inter-county player has been taken off. And to be honest, it just shows Darragh O'Sullivan's conviction that I don't care who's playing poor. Like, what a stick to be able to beat his team with the next day or leading into the next day. I'm happy to take off a county lad here and we'll still win. And Desi Hutchinson never truly got in the game. He had a couple of goal chances early on, but like Mike Casey did brilliantly back there.
Did that game plan to negate... It definitely took something away from your trying to get enough scores up the other end of the field.
Like, without doubt.
Yeah. Like 1-9, doesn't matter whether it's November. 1-9 is not, it's not going to get it done. Like, so.
There was a run early in the first half of the second half where Ballygunner had about 15 shots to 3. And that's where they pulled ahead from 7 points to 6 to 15 points to 7.
Yeah.
And just Napiershik just couldn't get a handle on the game. And, we were looking at this sort of familiar pattern where Ballygunner are sort of pull away from teams midway through the second half. And it looked like that was happening again. And probably but for a little bit of wastefulness, they probably would have done the same again. But Napiershik had 7 or 8 goal chances. A couple of them might be half chances. And a few times it might have been in the same move that there was a goal chance on twice. But like, there were chances there, and it took a good save from Stephen O'Keefe late on to ensure that it wasn't drawing level.
Yeah.
And I would have looked at the Napiershik team and some of the players that probably, when you look at the last time they won in All-Ireland and were in the final, there's probably been a turnover of a nice few players. And some of the lads that have come through, and there's a lot of young lads there, don't know if they were entirely ready for this. Some of them were probably blown out of it.
Look, I there's no doubt that you think their panel is getting stronger year on year. Like, they're not going out with the same team every year. They're adding to it, and like, you think the team that lost to, I must actually go back and look at the team that played in 2019 in Páirc Uí Rinn to the one that's there now. I'm sure it's much different. Like, that maybe there's players in different positions. Like, so look, they're constantly evolving. They're not just staying with the same game. They're constantly finding new ways to develop their game. So look, honestly, God, I think the only thing that's going to stop them from winning an All-Ireland now is either a couple of suspensions or a couple of injuries to key players. I honestly think that there's nobody to stop them at this stage.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then Ballynahinch came up short against St. Catherine's of Cork. It was 217 to 111. Brendan Ryan got 5 points. Joey Kelly got 2. Shane McGrath was one of the other players who got a point apiece. But Matthew Mulcahy and Brian Mulcahy with 1-4 and 1-1 did a lot of the damage. Sean O'Donoghue with 4 points, 3 of those been frees and another 65. So ultimately, it was just a bridge too far against St. Catherine's. Yeah,
it was. And look, I think any chance, I think they were Kiladangan, or was it 43 minutes? There was only a point in it. Like, so, like, they were well in the game until they conceded the first goal. And then when the second goal went in, I suppose as can happen, another team can run you. But like, the fact that their best forward, David Gleeson, wasn't there on Saturday was a huge blow. Like, he's their most dangerous inside forward, the former Tip minor in under 20. Like, I suppose he also plays rugby for Neen Ormond today, the game on the same day. So he made his decision to play with them. And look, that's his own call. Like, he's played rugby up along underage, so. And like, he would have missed games for Neen Ormond during the county championship. So when the Ballynahinch were en route to the final. So look, I don't think there's any. He's got to make a call, and he made a call on that day. And look, I do think if Kiladangan went into that match as county champions, I think David Gleeson would have been there. But I do think when you're a representative rather than a champion, it doesn't feel the same. You'll give it your best, but you don't feel as I don't think you feel as committed to provincial club if you're not the champion, if you know what I mean. Fully committed, fully bought in.
Geez, that's depressing to think of it that way.
It is, but I would have said the same going up to our if we don't beat Thurles Sarsfields in this replay, okay, we're still in Munster. How do you sort of feel like
imposter?
Yeah. Like
Maybe.
I personally think you have to win some. Like I just noticed there's three of the clubs in the Munster Junior Hurling are not champions of their own county.
Yeah.
2 finalists, or St. Catherine's and Fianna Kilmeedy didn't even win their county championships. Like I think that's something maybe maybe that's something that's got to be tidied up with the structures in terms I think you need to get more county champions through rather than just representatives, because then that sort of turns into more of a tournament then where you're not getting the most deserved in. You're just filling the space.
Well, there is that point. The flip side is then you could have divisions linked to the county championship, and you lost to the division. Why should you go through on the other end? And, I have to say, I don't know if it would be as romantic to see an All-Ireland club junior winner coming from, let's say, a B team from a big urban area.
But on the flip side, there's lads in that B team that will never play a senior. And why would you deny them the opportunity maybe to get a bit of honour for himself and his club, even if the club already is a first team?
Yeah, but I just don't think I'll ever see anything the likes of, Conaghy Shamrocks, tiny little club in Kilkenny. They'd lost their county final to O'Loughlin's second or third team, whatever it was, and seeing the tears streaming out of Nicky Brennan, former GAA president's eyes after the game. But look, anyway.
But I think what helped Conaghy in that is that the Kilkenny clubs had a tradition in their competition that they always did well. So you sort of felt you had to. Whereas maybe the fact that Tipperary clubs don't have a good record in it, you sort of feel like, God, if every other Kilkenny club is doing well in this, sure, God, sure, if we knuckle down, we'll do well in it. But whereas if a Tip club, you're sort of not carrying on the same tradition if a county is not doing well in the same competition.
One thing that, sometimes you can just get on a run. 2015, again, I don't want to feel like I'm bringing up Coola all the time, but it's relevant because the first time we got out of Dublin, got into the Leinster Championship, not only did we go on the beer after winning the final, we went on the beer on the Monday as well, because we're like, you have to celebrate that first county title in 21 years. And happened to get a draw which was favourable against Coolderry. It wasn't the most taxing match when you look back on it now, years later. And then you got on a run.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I would say the same about Borsley in 2019. They won the county.
Rovers who had lost their final against Billy.
But if they had played a Cork team that had won their championship, it's that Cork team, I think, would have been more invested in that game rather than Glen Rovers.
Could be right.
Yeah, that's why I do think there's something. If you're not a champion, you don't feel you're fully. Look, maybe like the Conaghy Shamrocks are the exception day, but then maybe in Leinster you do get. What would you say? You say you're Kilkenny junior champion. There's a fair chance you're going to get maybe a nice soft jaw or two after losing a county. You get the winning momentum back again because you're maybe playing Wicklow champions or West. They're not. Look, you saw, was it Tullaher Ross Birkin a few weeks ago? It was a 320 to 1-1 against some club, I think, in a quarter. Like that's a great. Even if after you win or lose a county championship, that's a great game. You're just back on the winning trail straight away, and you're back going.
But again, you have to look at how skewed things are. Kilkenny have 12 teams in their senior championship. Tipperary have 16.
Yeah, But I think the point of making any sort of game against an easy opponent after you win it or lose the county final is a great way to just get back on the horse one way or the other.
Yeah. I'm actually just looking up the championship in Wexford out of curiosity. There's 10 teams in there, so there's no excuse for that team that ended up losing the way they did to Tullaher Ross Birkin.
I'm not sure if maybe it was a Wexford team. I couldn't be sure.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I think it was a Wexford team, so it's not like they have an excuse that they had 30 teams in their top championship and therefore had a minnow in relative terms going through.
So it's I suppose it'll be fascinating to see what happens from here on in. You think Ballygunner would be raging favourites to win Munster. You have St. Thomas's will be the Connacht representatives.
Cushendall against Sheffield.
Well, I think they got some fright last weekend. I thought, I couldn't believe I was driving back and there were 4 or 5 points down to Portavery, and I said, "Geez, this is gone." Like, and then they won an extra time by 10. Like, so, and then sure Leinster is fast. Like it that it's wide open for me. Like I think Kilcormac will beat O'Loughlin Gales. The fact it's in Tullamore is a huge help to them this weekend. I think they'll beat O'Loughlin's, and that opens the door then for. I think Kilcormac could go on and win it, but I think you were looking at such an opportunity for Naas and Nafina on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, again, like this is Nafina's chance. They got in the terms of they're up and running now. It's their first Leinster campaign. They got that victory, and they were quite good, I'd say, against Raharney. They just always held Raharney at arm's length. And this was without Shane Barrett starting. I'm assuming it's because he had a bit of an injury. And Donald Burke, who, everything I'm hearing is that he won't be available again. And he's Dublin's best forward. To not have him in going into Leinster.
Like Raharney are good. Raharney are
very good.
The top 3 or 4 clubs in Westmeath would give a lot of the top end tip clubs. I don't think they would beat them, but they would give them a good game, maybe 5 or 6 point game. But like them boys can hurl so.
Unless it's in a Munster Championship and the tip teams won't perform. I'm only joking. Yeah. People know I'm joking there. But that one team that tends to perform pretty well in Munster Championships is Clonmel Commercials. And this weekend they're against a Dingle team that, though they may have been playing a is it a South Kerry Championship or a West Kerry Championship? West Kerry Championship. I'm not sure they're on the coast. Makes sense. They've been playing a West Kerry Championship, which they won. But it's a month since they played in the Kerry Senior Football Championship, which is obviously taken far more seriously. Like it's far more at stake. They lost to Mid Kerry that day, 3-10 to 9 points. But they had 2 red cards. One for Mark O'Connor, the AFL player, who everything I'm hearing he won't be available. And they had another one for Mikey Gainey. There's 4 Gainies on this team.
So they're on the forward line too, I think. So
it's Connor, Michael, Paul, and Niall. So and they are good players. Like there's plenty of threats all over the field for this Dingle team. But do you feel confident for Clonmel Commercial given the spread of quality?
I do, because I think Clonmel can play it both ways. I think they can play a patient game like they had to against Newcastle West, where the new Newcastle West would sit back deep in numbers and try and turn Clonmel over and hit them on the counter-attack. But I think Clonmel, as we saw on Tip and we saw against Nemo Rangers last year, if you want to play an open football game, Clonmel will play it with you. And I actually think that's what we're going to get this weekend from Dingle and Clonmel. And I'm disappointed that TG Carr have not taken this game for live coverage, because I think this could be exciting stuff. You give 2 teams with loads of scoring power, they've taken, I think, the 2 Ulster semis, and look, we know why they've taken the 2 Ulster semis, because the clubs are probably more well known and a few county lads and stuff. But I think this could be very, very good, attractive football. And I think while it's I think Dingle will be favourites just on the tradition of Kerry football, but I think Clonmel Commercials will have more than enough belief that they can win this game.
Any matchups do you think that will stand out? I suppose, will Seamus Kennedy go on Paul Gainey and try and hammer the hammer if you can?
Yeah, I think that's the one. Seamus Kennedy is just playing some incredible football this year. He's a player you'd love to have in any team you have hurling or football, because he's the perfect team player, isn't he? He'll stand in goals if you want him to stand in goals. And if you tell him to do a job, whether it's corner forward or cornerback, he'll do a job for you. He'll know what to do. And I think that the Dingle game plan generally is a lot of kick passing, and they like to get the ball in early. So you think you will, if you're going to go early into Gainey, you need somebody that a bit of size like Seamus Kennedy has, and maybe the likes of James Morris. Like they could be central in terms of making sure that those Dingle inside forwards don't get their hands on the ball too much.
Do you think there's a bit of a difference with the Clonmel team this year versus last year? Now, they were unreal the first day out against Nemo Rangers, but now they've avenged what was probably a bit of a flat performance against Newcastle West last year. Have they changed much in the last year? Is there anything different that you're aware of? Like, I look at the team, it's just full of players that we're all familiar with, that are on the county football panel. Like, they seem to have everything required.
They're actually slightly weaker when you look at Jason Lonergan not being available compared to last year. He's in the States, but then you have a few players like Keane Smith and Robbie O'Dowd have come in and they've made an impact.
Was Peter McGarry starting last year?
I think he would have been. Yeah, we would have been eligible anyway. So I can't remember he played in Newcastle West game, but like they have players and they have a panel. I think last year, after the high of Nemo, I just think they last year and they got what they deserved. They were beaten. Like I think this year, and I think we've seen it in Tip, even in the matches against Drum and Arnick Harty, where they hammered them. Like they're fully respected their opponent. And how do you fully respect an opponent? You bury them. It doesn't matter who they are. You go, if you can put 319 in a team, you go do it. If you go have 110 scored after 15 minutes and you think the match is won and you saunter through the rest of the game, that's a bad habit. Like that's whereas this year they seem to be okay. Doesn't matter who we're playing, we're going to play the same way after minute 1 as we do minute 60. Doesn't mean they're going to win the game, but I don't think they're going to switch off as they tended to do last year.
Yeah, but in terms of like forward power, there are those Gainies that we've kind of mentioned, and Michael and Paul, obviously in particular, have played an awful lot at county level. But the attacking threat of Clonmel, would you put it even above what Dingle have with Quinlivan, with Sean O'Connor, with some of the Kendys there? Peter McGarry has been scoring some nice goals lately.
Potentially, yes, but I'd say the Dingle lads are probably more natural scoring forwards. That maybe like they would play a higher. Really, they play against better defenses in Kerry, so they're probably able to score in minimal space. Like, so I think maybe that could be something that maybe Clonmel, as the further they go in this, and we hope to do that. Like any chances their forwards get, they can't be afford to be wasted. Like in the county final when they scored 6 goals against Brackens, they left a few behind them too. There's not been a small bit casual like that. Yeah, any chances they get now in Munster games going forward, hopefully beyond this weekend, they have to take them.
Yeah. Okay. So look, we'll hope that Clonmel can keep it alive for Tipperary clubs at large this weekend when they come up against Dingle. The Harty Cup then. So Tip have 4 representatives in the last 12 of the Harty Cup after the last round of games. It's been a good season so far.
Yeah, look, it's been good, and I suppose Carrigan-Shore nearly made it 5. Like they drew with Hospital last week, and they only lost to Castletroy by a few points in another group game, so they were very, very competitive. Look, to get 4 of the last 12 is very good, and I suppose Nina and Turles are straight through to the quarter, so we already have 2 in the last 8, and you'd have to think, not have to think, but you give Cashel, or I forgot whether Cashel are playing
Charleville.
I think Cashel would be favoured to win that, and Templemore are up against Hospital, and I think that could be tight enough. Like, but there is the potential for the 4 of them to get through to the last 8, and I do think while we're how would you say at the moment at adult level club and intercounty, we're looking for a bit of success. I do think at underage and at schools level we're doing a lot right at the moment. Like, you're not going to win everything at schools and underage level, but once you're very, very competitive and bringing players through, and getting to the latter end, like I'm sure Brendan Cummins, I think I might have said it last week, Brendan Cummins is probably getting so much value of all these Harty matches, because they're essentially free trials for him for next year's under-20s, because it's an under-19 competition. I know maybe people might automatically assume Harty Cup as being minor, but your Harty Cup is under-17, is under-19, so it's more equivalent to under-20 championship. And look, it's positive if we get Cashel. Those matches are next week, those preliminary quarterfinals. If we can get one, if not two, through to the last 8 in the new year to be something really to look forward to.
And is there anything in particular catching your eye in relation to these Tipperary teams, whether it's the teams themselves or any players?
There would be, I suppose. I think the likes of that. I'm here we've seen Darren McCarthy with Toon, but like he's really leading the show for Nina CBS, Jimmy Orman for Templemore, and like you have Ewan Murray and Robbie Ryan and loads of there's some spread of scores on that hurlers team. Like I think they're going to be hard to beat, and though particularly the fact that a lot of these matches are now being played on Astro, I definitely do think that helps Tipperary schools, because like we're a ball, we're skills based. I'm not saying other counties are, but we like fast zippy ball, and if you're playing a lot of these matches on 4G pitches, I definitely do think it's I wouldn't say more of a help. I definitely think it's like playing summer hurling, which I think most Tipperary players prefer.
And then I suppose if we're to move on to the Munster Camogie Championship, Drom and Inch beat De La Salle 113-111. In the other semi-finals, Sarsfields of Cork's off Newcastle West 16 points to 2-9. So that was very tight. But it does mean that Drom, they're back in a Munster final. And, they've got the relative home advantage then of Clonoulty Rossmore as being the venue where it's going to take place.
Yeah, I just saw that earlier on. I said, geez, that's a strange one. Generally, I would have thought those Munster finals take place in Mallow. And, okay, you would say Sarsfields are in Mallow, but Sarsfields are in Cork City. Mallow is right up the north. So I would have thought maybe Mallow would be a true neutral venue, because Drom would have played there a few times. I think the last 2 Munster finals were Mallow, and Drom played Clonlara. So, Scariff O'Gunnow, sorry. But yeah, I think that maybe it's the fact that maybe pitches are hard to come by. Maybe there was a toss for one Tipperary venue and one Cork venue, and the Tipperary venue won out. And I suppose the Dylan Quirk grounds, like I'm sure there'll be a fantastic atmosphere at the weekend. Like, and Drom, like they'll be thinking, God, they've a great chance here to go back to back in Munster after winning last year and getting some battle again off De La Salle last weekend. When we're looking at the score at half time, I think it was 9 points to 0 at half time last Sunday. And the same breeze, I'm sure, was in the rag, was in Semple Stadium. I was thinking, there's no way back for De La Salle. Okay, De La Salle would have the breeze to come, but it's hard to pull back in a 9-point lead, knowing that maybe the Drum were probably going to pack the defence. And then I couldn't believe it when I heard that we'd gone to extra time. De La Salle had actually managed to pull it back. So, but like for Drum then to come out and win in extra time was like the fair going for them. And like they're like we all would know, Cork camogie teams or club sides are very, very good, but you'd have to think Drum are in a great position to go and win another Munster and get back to that semi-final, All-Ireland semi-final, which we where they came up short last year. And I think it's Munster against Connacht. So assuming Sarsfields won Galway, it's Drum against Sarsfields. So they're the best in the business. Like they're the best we've seen of the last couple of years. So it's the games are only getting tougher from here for Drum, but sure, hopefully they'll scale the next hurdle next weekend.
Yeah, well, look, if you're going to win the All-Ireland, you'll probably have to face Sarsfields at some stage. In the intermediate then, Clonmorris of Kerry will be up against Shannon Rovers next. So that's a great opportunity for Shannon Rovers.
Yeah, I suppose the fact there's only 3 counties in Munster Intermediate Club hurling. Shannon Rovers got straight through to the final, and Clonmorris beat Blackrock of Cork last weekend. So, and like Clonmorris nearly are practically the Kerry adult hurling team. So if there's people watching on and thinking Shannon Rovers should be beating Clonmorris, get that out of your head straight away, because they're Ballyhaig, I think that's one of that area of North Kerry where hurling is number one, and they burst every football, I'd say, in the area. If like you hear that in Tip where you burst every football, like hurling is the only thing up in that area. So like this is going to be a tough ask for Shannon Rovers. But look, if they're fully tuned in and ready for the battle, I think they'd have a great chance. And like they'd be in an All-Ireland semi-final too. So hopefully maybe the fact that our hurling teams haven't made an impact in Munster, that our camogie teams will make up for that this weekend. I think the Shannon Rovers games is Saturday in Ennis, I think Father McNamara Park, and Sunday is the senior final in Clonalty.
Yeah, and Shannon Rovers will have to watch out for Patrice Diggin, who scored 9 points the other day against Blackrock of Cork. 9 out of 10 points. Blackrock scored 1-5 in that match. The All-Stars were the other night. Again, no All-Star for Tipperary, but we'd have some cheek to be looking for one.
Yeah, I don't think... I think I put up on Twitter that the show, I didn't even watch the show, to be quite honest. I just think it's so a bit tedious. I'd love to see them turn it into an event, have singers, have entertainment. I just think for you've been at the All-Stars, I've been at the All-Stars. It's a great event to be at, but I think it's a terrible event to watch on television. It's a bit dull. Like some of the answers to questions from players, or they're not going to tell you anything. Bar, who was the Derry player when he was asked about
Gareth McKinless.
I thought that was very funny.
But yeah, he was caught on the hop.
That was probably the only entertaining part of the show last weekend. Look, I suppose from a hurling point of view, probably along expected lines, you could probably argue Sean Finn over Mikey Butler. You could argue
Sean Finn, despite the injury and missing a lot of game time.
Or sorry, who? No, there was somebody. Was it
Barry Nash?
Oh, sorry, Barry Nash maybe over Mikey Butler. Sorry. Sorry. I know there's a lot of Clare people pissed that Tony Kelly missed out, but I think the Clare man that should have got, if you were saying TJ Reid shouldn't have got in, was Davy Fitzgerald. So I think, and I would have spoken to a couple of Clare journalists in Simple Stadium on Sunday. I asked them, do you think these wise men of Clare hurling, do you think Tony Kelly should have got an All-Star? And they said no. So I would take their judgment as pretty sound. I would have thought Davy Fitzgerald actually had a more impactful year for Clare than Tony has high. We know Tony Kelly is good, but I didn't think he was as good as other years. And that's not saying he didn't have a good year. I think we measure Tony Kelly at the same level of TJ Reid and Joe Canning, where if they're not having a 9 out of 10 year, they're seen as having a poor year, which is not right. It's harsh in some ways, but they sort of build that up by what we've expected from them previously.
Would do you think that Keane Lynch could have had himself up in hurler of the year territory if he hadn't had so many? He didn't win an All-Star, and because he'd had injuries and all that kind of stuff. But I think the final just showed that he's ready to come back as the top player again next year.
Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah, there's no doubt. I think you can be blinded sometimes by the final. Just say a player is injured a whole year and he comes back to the final and is man of the match in the final. Does that mean he deserves an All-Star? No, it doesn't. An All-Star is a body of work. Okay, semi-finals and finals are the real pressure games, but you can't forget maybe what went on in the earlier rounds. It's easy to overlook what went on, but you can't, because particularly in Munster, if you're not firing in Munster, you will not get out into the All-Ireland series. You have to fire in Munster to get into the All-Ireland series. So I actually put as much store on the round-robin games in Munster as I would in the All-Ireland semi-final, because you have to play well in them or you won't get in the top 3 to get to the All-Ireland series.
Which is quite different to the bigger teams in Leinster, So, look, I mean, obviously, Limerick on top again, and Kilkenny got quite a few All-Stars too. Anything else before we finish up?
It's winding down, isn't it?
Yeah,
but it's only winding up. Sure, next Friday is official competitive inter-county training opens up. So
I said they're all mad to get back to the pitch. They really miss it.
I'm actually surprised we haven't seen a Tipperary hurling panel released at this stage, which we did at this time last year. Because you would have thought Liam Cahill has probably had a good run at putting a squad together. I think Paul Kelly, the new Tip football manager, you would allow him time. I think he's definitely doing an awful lot of trials at the moment. So I think a lot of maybe what's going on at the moment with him and the early weeks of inter-county training will be trialing lads before he can actually put a full panel together. So, and then he won't have access to the Clonmel lads, hopefully until the new year if they go into the All-Ireland series. So, it'll be like you're adding these little bits and pieces together about who's in, like Darren McCarthy and Billy Seymour and Paddy McCormick, and
Willie Connors, I believe, is back.
Yeah, and Sean Hayes, and I'm led to believe Bonner Maher's been retained. So like that's another. You're hearing bits and pieces the whole time, like so. But I'm not hearing. I haven't heard any more about who's not. Like we know Seamus Callan's retired. We know Niall O'Meara's retired. I haven't heard any more about maybe who was on the panel this year that's not being retained for next year. But I'm sure I'm sure it'll start to. I'm sure there'll be a lot of eagle eyes maybe in Morris Park on Friday. If there's not a panel released before then, there'll be a lot of people. If there was a tip start on Friday night, that they'll want to see who's in there and who's not in there.
Yeah, it was the 14th of November last year when the Tipperary panel was released. As we're chatting now, it's the 22nd of November.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll see a fresh captain, or will Noel McGrath be retained?
Good one. I don't know what you think. I always think a captain has to be somebody that's almost nailed on to be on the team. I would say Noel McGrath is the spiritual leader of that group. I have no doubt in saying that, but I can't say now that Noel McGrath will definitely start the first round of the Munster Championship. It was just the way when the real big games came last year in the middle of the championship, his influence on the game was negated, and it's becoming so quizzical and so quick. Like my own thoughts on Noel McGrath is that you turn him into. If you want to get the best of Noel McGrath in these last few years of the season, I think you have got to make him a holding halfback. If he gets the ball in the halfback line, he has his vision. He will do. He can see the field better than any other player in Tipperary. You know that sort of Willie Connors thing. You know he will not waste the ball.
Yeah, but if that's the case, it's a bit like if you continue to pick Patrick Horgan as a forward for Cork, and he is brilliant.
Yeah.
But everyone else needs to be a serious, pacey athlete around him, because that's going to help create the space. So if you start Noel McGrath, who he is one of the best pairs of hands in the country,
and he's only 31, 42. He's a lot of miles on the clock, but he's not old.
But can you then afford to have a backline that also includes Ronan Maher, Owen Connolly?
That's it. Yeah.
So I don't know.
It all depends on how Liam Cahill decides to set up. I'm sure over the last 5 months, and him and Michael Beavens and the selectors probably would have dissected. Okay, what do we have to do here to go better next year? Like, so maybe they might see Noel as being centre forward or midfield where he was last year. So look, this is only my point of view that I think the best to get the best out of Noel McGrath and impactful would be, if he gets turned in a half-back role, he's in trouble. We're in trouble, but that's not to say you couldn't play a sweeper or a +1 and have him as the +1. And if he gets the ball in his hands, he's so effective. I do think if you're looking towards the future, maybe a change in captain might be it's tended to be Pádraig Maher, Brendan Maher, Seamus Callanan, a lot of the 2010 brigade.
Yeah.
Maybe as a sign to the future mightn't do any harm to switch it up. I think Cathal Barrett would make an excellent captain. Like, he's been there for a while, but he's one of those sort of we'd lead different. He leads by his actions, as if, follow me, lads, I'll go through a brick wall, and that sort of inspires lads. I think he could make a good captain. I think Jason Ford could make a good captain. It'd be fascinating to see if they do change it up. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I think that's it for the show again this week. Somber enough because Tipperary teams they're dwindling at Munster level at this stage. But anyway, look, we'll be back next week, Shane, and the newspaper is in stores locally now.